Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Roundup. This is episode number 483, and I'm about to tell you the dumbest story I've ever told on a podcast before, but it's probably less than a minute long. But when I was a kid, I used to ride my bike absolutely everywhere. Even when I moved in with my grandparents in the middle of a city, I would get on my bike and ride all the way to cousin Scott's house to go play video games and do whatever else. And I had this bike lock, and the combination, because all those locks just have the combination on them and you just had to memorize it. Combination was 483. And there was one night we were all sitting in the TV room because I lived with my grandparents at the time, and they had this like old porch that was freezing cold that Scott and I used to play video games in. It was the only TV downstairs. And my grandfather used to play the lotto, as much as possible, but the cheap one, and he used to play the pick three. And he goes, "Okay, let's all sit and got it. What do you think the number is going to be?" And I yelled out 483. And sure enough, 483 came out. My grandfather was mad. He's like, "Oh, why couldn't you have told me that before I bought the tickets?" And he stormed out of the room. So every time I see 483, that's what I think of. So shout out to my grandfather. He's been gone for a long time, but awesome guy. And I don't think he would find this story funny, but I told it anyway. Oh well, jumping in. Let's see what's been going on this week. No more rambly stories, I promise. First up, both Dragonbox in Germany and Consoles for You in Switzerland are carrying all of the RetroTINK cables. I did this post when I saw that Dragonbox had added them to their stock, and I didn't realize that Jan had also stocked them at Consoles for You, so my apologies, Jan. But all of the links are here, and then all the links are updated on the main RetroTINK page as well, the retrorgb.com/retrotink.html, so you know where to get every single one of the RetroTINK devices, including these cables. And if you're unaware of what the cables are, please watch the video in the post. But essentially, it's just a way to get clean RGB out of a bunch of different consoles that go to an HD15 connector, which would allow you to adapt it to different cable types very easily. So if you already have a solid cable solution, quality RGB SCART cables, quality component video cables, you don't need this. But if you're looking to upgrade or if you're looking to build a setup from scratch, definitely take the time to watch the video, because even if they're not the right choice for you, at least you'll have some peace of mind knowing what they are and how they could apply to you, and it's not that long of a video, so I don't feel bad telling you to watch it. Xbox Scene has just announced their second annual Modfest, which is essentially just a way to encourage people to have homebrew written for the original Xbox, the 360, and the One or Series consoles. And while there are different categories and you could win prizes and stuff like that, there's also bounties for much desired projects. Stuff like port Raylib to the Xbox, update and expand libSDL port, RxDX improvements for Callisti OS, and port libcurl or equivalent with SSL and HTTPS. So there's $100 or $150 bounties for those. So basically, if you like creating homebrew and you're a fan of the Xbox, now's the time, right? You have yourself a little bit of an incentive to do it. You can have other like-minded people get together and work on the stuff and just make it part of a fun mod fest. Or don't, and work at it on your own time and still contribute awesome stuff. Whatever. I'm a fan of everybody's contributions, and I do also kind of like contests like this too. It does kind of get some excitement involved in it as well. So if you're into this stuff, check out Durf's post. A new alternative firmware was just released for the Sarro optical drive emulator for the Sega Saturn, and you probably don't want to use it because it could potentially brick your cartridge, and the menus are all in Chinese anyway. This was a fork done by developer YZB, and it does offer stuff like cheat codes, audio and video players, photo CD support, and the ability to edit config files from within the menu. So it's got the potential to eventually be integrated into other firmwares or maybe another version of it. But at the moment, I would absolutely call this developer only and not something that you want to risk on your Sarro. I still use Martin from Retro Gamer Stores, as the Shiro crew taught me about a while back. And when I saw this post over on the Sega Saturn Shiro website, I reached out to Dan. We actually talked about it at the same time. And I wanted the info here because while I always like to promote new stuff, and while new broken stuff could absolutely lead to new amazing stuff, I think it's always fair to put the warning out there. But the Sarus are still awesome. The one from J&T Studio is definitely the one to get because it's made properly with all the right parts and beveled edge in a really nice case. If you want to cheap out and get some of the AliExpress ones, that's fine, but do so at your own risk, knowing it might not be the same quality. And I would absolutely recommend Martin's firmware for now, but it's open source. People are working on it, so who knows what else is going to be coming out for it. But thanks to Dan and the Shiro crew for the warning. This is one that most of us are going to want to skip for now, at least. Wobbling Pixels has just released an absolutely epic written comparison of the RetroTINK 4K CE, the OSSC Pro, and the Morph. And this spreadsheet has basically all of the information you could possibly imagine comparing the three scalars. And it's absolutely going to be my go-to when I forgot something or just wanted to reference a feature or something like that. It is so detailed and so in-depth. And it is a spreadsheet that if anybody is curious about the differences between them, spend some time in it. This isn't something to just reference for 2 minutes and walk away. You're going to want, I mean, there are summary tabs and stuff like that, but you really are going to want to go through, if you're curious about the differences and kind of dig in. And the OSSC Pro did great. And I really wish I had more time to dedicate on that one because while Marco covered its awesome downscaling, I've always been a fan of the upscaling part of it. I have so little free time, which is why I haven't gotten to my own comparison as well. Now, the RetroTINK 4K Pro was not part of this comparison because I think Wobbling Pixels was aiming at all of the scalars that were similar in price and similar in features. If you want a difference between the Pro and the CE, I did a video on that right when the CE was released that covers most of the features. I think there's some little things that have been added since, but the basic overview of the differences could be summarized there. So if you're curious, I don't mean to self-promote when I'm talking about Wobbling Pixels' amazing work. Go watch WP's videos as well, of course, but that kind of fills in the gaps between the Pro and the CE for anybody that was curious. And, the short version of that is just even people who might not use all of the extra crazy features like IVTC would still appreciate the differences in the Pro if you had the money to spend on it. The automatic phase adjustment, the slightly better motion adaptive deinterlacing, enhanced S video, all of that stuff is awesome. But if you don't have the budget or just don't want to justify that much money, the CE is still awesome. So basically, just go through and decide what's best for you. Price points, different features, different options, what it does better, what it does worse. Go through this and really check it out for yourself. And I hope someday to finally find the time to do a comparison of all of these myself. But as Wobbling Pixels knows from the insane amount of work spent on this spreadsheet, that's probably something that I don't think I'd be able to tackle all at once. I would have to dedicate a couple of months to doing a series of videos on it and hope that I didn't kill my algorithm only doing extra videos on scalar comparisons for 3 months. But that's what it would really take for me to have to find the time to be able to do it. I would have to do a quick overview and then pick one feature like 240p scaling, 480i deinterlacing, and just kind of do one video at a time. And if that's something you want, please let me know. But I'll tell you right now, I'm going to be referencing this spreadsheet for a lot of the info and talking with Wobbling Pixels. I'm not stealing info. I'm not going to be working with him on this, but still, if it's something that you want, let me know and I'll see if I could try to find time to do that and dedicate a couple of months to just maybe clear out some of my backlog and just do scalar comparisons. But really, this is going to have all of the answers that you're looking for. And if you're looking to buy one right now, reference this and see what you got because I think you'll be very happy with what Wobbling Pixels did. And once again, thank you for spending the ridiculous amount of time on this. I know what it takes to do something like this, and it's very impressive work. The developer Starlight K7 has just released an open source replacement motherboard for the original 2-chip Super Nintendo. This one was based off the SHVC CPU01 motherboard with the TCMK77XR sound module, the one with the separate soundboard. And at the moment, the goal of the project was to be a one-to-one replacement. So if you're somebody whose board got destroyed, but the chips are still intact, you could transplant the chips over, have the rest of the parts populated with modern components, and be done with it. And George from One Up Restorations put out a video and is also selling them. So is Starlight, depending on whether you want to get them from Japan or the US. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out all of these. And before I go on, I just want to make it clear that I am a massive fan of preservation projects like this, and I always appreciate the work that goes into them. But as a nerd, what I really want to see is what's coming next. So I would love to see a version of this with some of the different mods built into it, like digital audio mod, or maybe even muxing the digital audio mod. So if you use the FX Pack Pro's MSU1 audio, that can get filtered in as well. I obviously would love to see like the Voltar Edge Enhancer mod in there, but also the developer Opus had done a kind of a two-chip bypass mod years ago that required you to remove the chips. And doing that allowed for potentially an HDMI mod. So that would be awesome because that was, I think, an open source project as well. So that could be integrated into this because if you're going to take the time to remove the chips, you might as well just do it in a brand new project like this and have everything integrated right onto the board. So while all of that is speculation, wishful thinking, a ridiculous amount of work, by no means am I expecting anybody to just do that overnight. I wanted to talk about it to have fun with it, but also to set expectations. You're essentially getting, for better or worse, an SHVC CPU01 motherboard that you need to transplant the proprietary chips over to. So at the moment, this is still going to be helpful and amazing for preservation, but I want to see what Starlight and some of the other developers come up with next. And I'm also kind of just curious how this one differs from the original. Hopefully, I'll be able to borrow one at some point just to do MD4A testing and some video testing as well. MD4A is tricky because no two SNESs sound exactly alike, even the same motherboard revisions. But who knows? Maybe this could eventually evolve into a project where, we use all audiophile grade capacitors on there and just put super high end components and get as just a really enhanced Super Nintendo out of it. Or not. If it stays exactly as it is, we still have a great preservation project for the original SNES, and it's awesome to see. So thanks to Starlight, thanks to George for doing the video on it, and links to everything are right in the post. Chris from Displaced Gamers just released another awesome video about the original NES Metroid and answered a question that I have been nagging him as well as the developer Infidelity about for a long time now. And why is it that when you jump as you're moving forward in the original Metroid, does it kind of skip as it goes forward? And the short version is because you change speed, so it has to update at a non-even pace, which is still a very cool explanation. But this is just one of those videos that if you played the original Metroid and you want to know why it's so laggy in certain parts, why does it jitter, what's going on, Chris, as usual, does an amazing job breaking it all down. And even though I'm nowhere near smart enough to truly understand what he's talking about, Chris always presents it in a way where anybody with just a little bit of patience and understanding of, basic computer code, written code makes thing change on screen. That's all you really need to know to enjoy these videos. So thanks for doing them. I really enjoyed watching this one, and I'm glad to finally know what was up with jumping in the original Metroid. Stone Age Gamer is now selling Electron Shepherd's Electron NMB, which is an SNES multi-out breakout device that plugs into the back of basically all the consoles that support the SNES multi-out and allows you to simultaneously use composite, S-video, audio, and RGB, or I guess two S-videos or two composites if for whatever crazy reason you really needed to do that. But I love this thing and I use it all the time. So many live streams when you see me using original NES hardware use this, where I'll just go S-video into either a Sony PVM or just a consumer CRT, and then I'll take the RGB out for the live streams. I think that's the number one reason that I use it. But while I own quality composite and S-video cables, this thing is right here next to me at all times, and I have a pile of cables, component, S-video, composite sitting next to me. So very often when I just want to do comparisons or just plug something into a CRT real quick, I'll grab this just because it's super handy and I'm able to use other cables with it. So while yes, it's a little more expensive at Stone Age Gamer, I figured maybe you have credits there, or maybe you're looking to buy a bunch of other stuff from Stone Age Gamer and you just want to add this to the cart to save money overall. But really, the real reason I wrote this up was just as another excuse to talk about the Electron NMB because I'm a big fan of it, and I do think that there's so many people out there that would benefit from it. And it's compatible with every cable that plugs into the SNES multi-out. So even if you got one of those brand new RetroTINK RGB cables, you could still use this with it to get the other signals at the same time. So definitely check it out if you're interested. I did the full original review. I got links to everything else. Just check out the post if you're interested. But I'm a big fan of this thing, and I was happy to have an excuse to talk about it again. The developer Infidelity has just released his latest NES to SNES port for the game Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the original NES. And oh boy, do I hate this game. All kidding aside, it's got all the same enhancements as all of the other NES to SNES patches, where there's little to no sprite flicker, little to no slowdown, MSU1 audio tracks, One of the MSU1 tracks is one of the Firebrand X recordings that I had talked about a month or two ago, where he's getting super high quality analog audio recordings, the best you could basically get out of an original NES, but pumping that through as CD quality audio so that you could have both a good analog audio experience, but also so that the NES sound channels could be used at the same time, so the music doesn't drop out when sound effects happen. Also, you could select whichever color palette you want just by hitting L and R at any time, which is very helpful. Some color palettes just look way better for other games, and as we've been learning, especially if you've been following this channel for a while, it's really, really hard to get proper colors out of the original NES in RGB or on modern displays, or even over on the SNES. So that's a big help. Pressing X during gameplay will swap out the available turtle, so you don't have to go into the menu for that, which is very handy and it works very well. And also, if you're in the menu, right trigger, left trigger, A, X, in that order, not all at the same time, will switch it to a 60 frame per second mode. Now, in order to accomplish this, the game had to essentially double in speed, because to actually make it 60 frames per second, you would have to change the animations on everything in the game. You would have to redraw the entire game. So it would be possible if anybody wants to port graphics over, but I think this was just a really cool way to see how smooth it could actually be. More of like, kind of like Outrun on the Saturn. The arcade version of Outrun ported to the Saturn has the 60 frame per second mode, which it was really cool to see how it would have looked, but the original definitely was better. At least most people think so. But I'm very happy that Infidelity put that in there just because it was awesome to see. There's also Infidelity also went back and updated almost all of the previous ports to support third-party controllers, which is something I didn't realize was an issue. But sometimes the way, and please check out the post on social media if you're interested in the details. I'm not really smart enough to do it justice, but basically the way some third-party controllers access the controller port is different, so that's been addressed with it as well. And also, Infidelity went back and updated the original Super Mario Brothers to have color palette choices, which is great because I think we've all argued over the purple sky in Super Mario Brothers at some point. Um, I do hate the game though. I did a live stream on it, a very short one, just showing how well it runs. Obviously, my frustration has nothing to do with this port. It's only the game itself, but I immediately got PTSD to being a kid and wondering why this game was so stupidly and unnecessarily hard. And the only thing I could think of is the developers were like, we need to get this game out. It needs more levels, but we don't have time, so let's just make it harder so kids have to play it more. But wow, there were just so many annoying and unfair things about this game. And it definitely just, like, I have such little free time. I want to play games that make me happy. And sometimes the right amount of challenge gives you that sense of satisfaction when you beat it. And while it might be frustrating, it's awesome. This just made me angry. Luckily, the people in the chat were completely understanding and kind of had fun with me with it. But yeah, I don't like this game. I don't think I'm ever going to play this one again. But if I were to ever play it again, it would only be this conversion. It would not be the original NES version, because I do notice all of the differences. And if you want more details as to why the original game was so broken, Chris from Displaced Gamers did two different videos, one on the water level and one on input lag. And just to note, on the water level, I do believe the developer, Infidelity, tweaked the hitbox a little bit in this to make it less unfair in some of those places. So that was cool to see. But check those out if you're interested. And you could always also go back and watch the Angry Video Game Nerd video on this, because I think that was spot on. Before I go, I just did a review on an HDMI splitter that is not PS3 compatible, so you can't use it to like put your streaming box into your RetroTINK 4K or something like that. But it does support 4K 120 or 8K 60, and I never got a single dropout, which you would think, why would you get dropouts? But a lot of the HDMI equipment I've tested over the years were great for like a half hour, 45 minutes, and then all of a sudden it's like somebody pulled out the HDMI cord and plugged it back in, and it takes a moment for it all to resync. That did not happen on this at all, which is why I'm mentioning it at all for you. So there are scenarios in which you don't need that other kind of splitter, and I think modern consoles might work fine through capture cards that way. Your capture card probably has a pass-through, but not all do. And sometimes it's just easier to use a splitter, especially if you need audio extraction, which is fine up to 5.1 audio. So this is definitely something that I thought was worth talking about. However, my favorite splitter that I've been using for years is still available. I'm going to leave a link to that too. This is PS3 compatible. It supports up to 4K 60 HDR and all that stuff. But I do want to know, I've bought another one of these every couple of months for 2+ years now, because anytime somebody asks me about one, I'll give them mine, I'll get another one just to make sure that it's still PS3 compatible. And it's been like 3 months since I bought one. So has anybody bought one of these recently? Anybody want to just confirm in the comments if it still is PS3 compatible? Because companies are absolutely known to change this stuff without telling anybody. So please let me know. If not, I'll probably buy another one, and heck, maybe I'll do another short review of just that, because this is still my go-to. I have 3 of them. I use it every single time I need a splitter, and it is compatible with the RetroTINK 4K as long as you're on the latest firmware, or one of the latest firmwares. So yeah, if you don't need 4K 120, get the original one that I still love. And if you do, maybe consider this one, but just remember, it is not PS3 compatible, so I just want to warn everybody right off the bat. Well, that's it for this week. There was a few more things that I wanted to talk about and a few more posts I wanted to write, but I've been working hard on an upcoming OLED-focused video for you, and there's nothing time-sensitive that I missed, but I just wanted to say that's why this week's a little bit lighter, because I definitely wanted to double down and try to get this out for you this weekend, and I hope people like it. I hope I did a good job, but I try my best. That's all I can promise. Anyway, as always, thank you to everybody who watches, listens, plays nicely in the comments, and especially thank you to anybody who supports in any way, because it really is you who's keeping all this stuff going. So thanks again, and I'll see you next week. This week's Roundup is brought to you by Neo Paradigm Entertainment, connecting Southeast Asian influencers with opportunities in the West.